Eu vou tentar. Preocupada com a minha, porque eu tô achando que eu vou passar os 25 minutos, né? Tentar falar o menos possível. Vamos ver.
Mr. Victor.
Hello.
Hello.
Bom dia.
Bom dia, tudo bom?
Tudo bem, e vocês?
Bem, graças a Deus.
Adoro a camisa.
Hum?
Adorei a camisa.
Ah, obrigada. De vez em quando tem que usar.
É. All right. 11:02. I think we can start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Guess so.
Awesome. I think all of us would like to say welcome to one more of our series of events to cherish life. And today we are going to reflect and talk about drug addiction. Victor, would you like to share? Did you do that that agenda? If you'd like to share, and then we can just go through the agenda and then do. Anna, are you okay doing the prayer or the opening, or you like me to do?
Hi, I prepared the final one.
The final one? I'll do the first one then.
Thank you.
All right. So today we're going to spend the next 2 hours talking about drug abuse and the prevention of it, and with the goal of cherishing our life and trying to prevent that drugs can take part and challenge us in this in our life. So first, we're going to talk about what may cause the temptation related to drug. Part 2 will be how can we understand the consequences of drug addiction with Spiritism. And part 3 is how can Spiritism be a source of relief and support to recover from substance abuse. And at the end, we'll do a final prayer. So I think I would like to bring a text, and then we'll do our initial prayer, and then we'll jump right in with Victor with the first topic of today. Let me just share my screen here. So this is a text from the Living Spring, and it's about fraternity. It's text number 15. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Jesus in John chapter 13, verses 35. Ever since Constantine's victory, which opened the doors of political hegemony to the Christian world, we have been through many experiences to show that we are disciples of Jesus. We have held renowned councils, formulating daring conclusions regarding the nature of God, the soul, the universe, and life. We have encouraged dreadful wars that impose misery and terror on those who could not believe in the tenets of our faith. We have fought over the tomb of the Divine Master by spreading ravenous fire and brandishing the murderous sword. We have created condemns and religious posts by distributing poison and wielding the dagger. We had lit fires for burnings at the stake, constructed gallows, invented tortures, and built prisons for those who disagree with our points of view. We have encouraged insurrections that cause animosity between brothers and sisters in the name of Lord, who on the cross bore witness of his devotion to all humankind. We have built beautiful and sumptuous palaces and basilicas in his memory, forgetting that he did not have a stone on which to rest his head. And today, we still nourish schism and discord, digging trenches of incomprehension and animosity against one another because we interpret the faith differently. Nevertheless, the word of Christ is irrefutable. We cannot claim to be wards of the good news simply by our outward attitudes. Yes, we do need education, which improves the mind, justice, which preserves order, material progress, which enriches work, and counsels, which support the study of the faith. However, without the light of love, all human activity might be lost in darkness. We will be accepted as learners of the gospel by cultivating the kingdom of God, which begins in our inner life. Therefore, let us extend pure and simple fraternity all around us by mutually helping one another. The fraternity that labors and assists, understands and forgives, aimed the humility and service that ensures the victory of the good. Wherever we are, let us practice fraternity, recalling the word of the Lord, who clearly and surely asserted, by this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. So connected to this beautiful message of fraternity, this important lesson and important teaching that Jesus has given us to love one another. Let's elevate and raise our thoughts to our God, to our Master Jesus, to our guardian angels, and the entire spiritual team from FSS. And first, be thankful and be grateful for one more opportunity that we have to enlighten, to share knowledge, and to cherish this gift that is our life in this world. Thank you, God, for all the intuition, all the advice that all of us have been given in preparing all the material and to share this knowledge. Let's remember what Emmanuel says, that the act of clarifying, the act of enlightening and sharing knowledge is an act of love. So with love, with our hearts and our souls fulfilled with love, Lord, help us and guide us for us to have a moment of understanding, a moment of clarification, but above all, a moment of fraternity, a moment of love. So be it.
So be it.
You can take the reins, Mr. Victor.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you for that beautiful text. It was really inspiring. And topic for now is to start talking about drug abuse prevention by first reflecting a little bit about the causes, what can cause us to feel the temptation and to actually go ahead and start using and eventually abusing it at one point. And I do want to remind ourselves as well that we won't be able to go very deep into the causes, but in any way are we trying to show that they're simple. We truly understand they're not simple, and they're very deep for each person going through a drug abuse moment in their lives. And the purpose here is to bring education for us to understand what could be the causes, so that we can reflect within ourselves and perhaps understand and see whether or not we are going through some of those movements or behaviors, so we can hopefully prevent. And if we are already in it, are there any triggers, or is there any hope that we can find in Spiritism, as Louise and Sonia will bring to us later on? So to start off, we'll be utilizing heavily a text from Joanna called Existential Conflicts, mostly because she brings one chapter specifically about a drug addiction. And she highlights to us that drug addiction is currently one of the most serious mental and organic health problems that our society is facing. And I looked into the Calgary Dream Center, and they have some data, and I do like numbers, so I did bring a little bit of numbers that struck me a little bit, for me to understand a little bit more about Canada. And in this infograph by the Calgary Dream Center, they mentioned that roughly 6 million people, or about 21% of our population in Canada, will experience addiction at some point, right? So that's 1 in 5. So if we have 5 friends around us, statistics would say that one of them might experience addiction at some point in their lives. So again, the purpose of this is to bring the education, especially on the prevention side, so we can hopefully, through reflection, through education, to talking to friends and family, and participating in the Spiritist Center, that we can hopefully change our mindset and decide not to go down this path. And Joanna keeps going by saying that in the psychogenesis of the drug addiction, so in drug addiction, the spirit itself is bewildered, is insecure, and sometimes revolted, which brings from the past a high load of frustration and rebellion. So Spiritism brings us a sense of justice and relief when we think about why we're suffering, why we're going through a situation in our lives that might tempt us to use drugs. It brings us the idea of there are some past issues that we were likely being invited to work on in this lifetime. So this helps us bring a little bit of justice to our hearts, and to hopefully stop or dilute a little bit of that rebellion that we might be feeling. And in Canada alone, in 2020, so last year, this study showed that 27% of people used or smoked marijuana. That again it's almost 1 in 3 people. And Josandro was talking about, I was watching a talk from Josandro on drug addiction, and he did mention that one of the main issues with marijuana is that it opens the door up for other drugs that might be more addictive. And in Canada alone last year, we had almost 1 in 3 people choosing to smoke it. So it does bring a little bit of awareness and for us to understand how this can be very endemic. So since we're talking about the causes, we'll spend quite a bit on this slide here. And the source, the core that we're trying to understand, what could drive us to use drugs. The core of it, that's why it's in the center of the slide, is what we call the existential emptiness. It's an emptiness that we feel inside, and I'm sure a lot of people have felt it before. I know I have, where something is missing. Sometimes we might feel that something is missing in our lives. And this existential emptiness that we feel has quite a few drivers. There's quite a few drivers that make us feel this way. And the majority of them is around materialism. It's thoughts and behaviors that are solely focused on materialism. For example, one of the things that we always like to talk about at FSS is our egoic feelings and our masked feelings or masked ego, meaning that the egoic feelings, when we give in to those egoic feelings, when we're constantly feeling rage, we're feeling angry, jealousy, vengeance, and so on and so forth. We're feeling those and we choose to keep feeling it. A lot of times we enjoy it, and that's when we're giving in to those feelings. And a lot of the behaviors that come from those are not good. And that starts to divert or starts to disconnect ourselves from the loving spirit that we are. So that starts to drive a little bit of emptiness inside. The other one is what we call the masked ego. So it's when we're living a persona. So we are not being true to who we are. We put up a facade, we put up a persona, we put up masks, showing to the world a person that we would like to be. But deep inside, we're not that person. We're just showing a face. And that to us is very detrimental to our being, because we're constantly telling ourselves every time we put a mask on or every time we show something that we're not, we're deep down telling ourselves that I don't like myself. Like, I don't like me. That's why I need to show something else. Right? And that also drives this emptiness, because we're actively engaging a disloving feeling, or actively telling ourselves that we don't love ourselves. So that also will drive some distancing from the loving self that we are. So those are the two main drivers for existential emptiness, and the one that's the basis of it is our connection with God. It's our connection with the divine, with our creator. And Spiritism can bring us a lot of enlightenment here, because when we're not feeling that we are sons and daughters of God, when we're distancing ourselves from God, we start questioning from a very materialistic point of view, what's the purpose of life? Why am I here? Why are things happening to me? And without that understanding of the purpose of life, we start to lose hope in the future. And this is where Spiritism can help us a lot, by understanding the law of reincarnation, the law of cause and effect, and the idea and the truth that we are sons and daughters of God. That feeling brings to us an idea that we're not just creatures up in the air, that there is no reason, or there is no rhyme or reason to anything. But rather, when we feel like we are sons and daughters of God, we can feel that there is a loving energy around us, and that there is a reason for the things that we go through. So that starts to fill that emptiness that is inside. And we bring also in, when we talk about suicide, how this existential emptiness can eventually drive us to find ways to basically lose hope, right? And the truth is that this existential emptiness, like we said, it hurts. It gets to a point where it hurts, and instead of starting to reflect about it, because every time we feel pain, every time it hurts, the invitation there is for us to reflect about it. Let's try to understand what's driving this. Let's talk to a friend. Let's go to a spiritual center and seek out for help to try and understand and overcome it. But most often than not, we try to simply numb that hurt, that pain. And we don't have to go too far away. We can numb our pain with TV, with food, with social media, anything that disconnects us from that feeling that's hurtful is a way to numb it. But since we're talking about drugs, drugs is also a very powerful chemical that we can use to numb that pain. And the issue here is that every time we try to numb it, we're denying ourselves from the experience, from learning about ourselves a little bit more, understanding what's causing us that pain and overcoming it. So when we, for example, we're feeling stress, we're feeling rage, or any other feeling that hurts, and we choose to numb it with drugs, we start to feel a sense of pleasure, a sense of satisfaction, right? Through endorphins in our brains. But the thing is, that feeling of pleasure, that feeling of satisfaction is fabricated. It's not conquered. This is something that Hosandro brings to us in the same talk about drugs. He says that this feeling of pleasure, of satisfaction that drugs can bring to us, it's fabricated. It's not conquered. It's not something that I worked towards and slowly conquered within myself by transforming or by filling my empty bucket. Instead, it's fabricated. And because it's fabricated, as soon as it's out, as soon as the effect of the drug is out, we fall back down. And when we fall back down, we want to pick ourselves up and go back to that high. Right? And then, as you can start to see, you can start a vicious cycle. You can start, you can promote an abuse of drugs, which is what we're talking about here today. And like I just mentioned, whether it's an abuse that I'm using all the time, whether it's when I'm using it sporadically, every time that we purposely numb a feeling because we simply don't want to feel it, we're denying ourselves from that opportunity of learning. Because with every feeling, every thought that we have, every experience that we go through is an opportunity for us to learn. That's why we're going through it. So if we decide to numb it, that means that we're denying ourselves, basically telling God that no, I do not want to deal with it right now. And that learning will eventually come. It's up to us to decide whether or not we want to learn now or later. And Joanna brings to us, sorry, not Joanna Genegelis, my bad, the Spirit's book brings to us in question 133, when we're talking about incarnation, he asks, is incarnation necessary for spirits who have followed the path of the good from the beginning? And the answer is, all are created simple and ignorant, gaining instruction through the struggles and tribulations of corporeal life. Since God is just, God would not make some blissful without their having deserved it through hardship and work. So here we're starting to understand a little bit more about the things that we go through life and how numbing it won't, I don't think I can highlight it, but it won't provide us the work to build our happiness. So much so that in the spirits, they say here on the very first sentence, gaining instruction through the struggles and tribulations of corporeal life. So the struggles and tribulations, they are opportunities for us to learn. If we decide to numb it, again, we're denying ourselves from that learning. We're basically telling through the mercy of God that gives us those opportunities, we're telling it not now. And that's perfectly fine. But that just means that we're delaying an eventual learning. And that brings us the responsibility of that choice. So responsibility and mercy, they're together in that sense. I can choose to deny myself from that experience today. And that's perfectly fine, because God's mercy will give me that opportunity later on. But as we know, those opportunities might be tougher and tougher as time progresses. And going back to Joanna de Angelis now, when she is talking about drug addiction, since that's what we're chatting about, there are, and we're not trying to simplify it, but there are enhancing factors to that existential emptiness that we talked about that leads us to seek out drugs. There are some external factors that can for sure enhance it, right? We're not saying that they are the cause, but they can certainly enhance it. And Joanna brings us a list. She talks about many different ones. She says the lack of moral education, moral in brackets, because it's first the lack of moral education, but also the lack of education on drugs, understanding the consequences, the causes, so we can make an educated choice whether or not we want to do it. She also talks about police repression and socioeconomic difficulties. She talks about how advertisements are so involving and that can lead those of us without a moral education or a well-rounded education around drugs. Those advertisements can be very enticing and can also lead to a news case. And she brings the idea of the conflicts at home as well. Those are all enhancing factors. And what Sonia will bring a little bit later on, spiritual obsession. Spiritual obsession is also a big enhancing factor for many reasons. One of them being a spirit that is an enemy of ourselves from the past, and he truly wants to see us fail. He could be enticing us and driving us to go down that path. The other one that we see in books from André Luiz and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda are spirits that are connected to the users of drugs, because they want to have that feeling that they used to have when they were incarnated and they were drug users as well. So there's that relationship as well, and many others. The one thing that I wanted to bring about spiritual obsession is just the idea and the comprehension that those spirits that are the obsessors. They are sons and daughters of God, just like anybody else that might be going through a tough time. So love is always the best option here, as opposed to the feeling of hatred against them. Love is truly what the medicine that fixes it all. And I believe I have 2 more minutes, or 3. Please, can you give me a time check?
5.
Okay.
5 minutes,
Thank
yeah.
So now I wanted to move on to one topic that's really important, because it drives what we're trying to do here as well, right? Our workshop is about drug abuse prevention. And Joanna D'Angelis brings a specific part about prevention when she says that education, without any doubt, from childhood onwards, is the most valuable preventive therapeutic resource, because it is safer to avoid dependence than to get out of its hidden surroundings. So the best thing that we can do is to prevent. And education from childhood, like she mentions, is truly one of the most valuable preventive measures that we can take. She says that frank and natural dialogue with children and young people must be part of family conversations. Awareness starts at home. So when we're talking about cherishing life, we're about choosing life and cherishing the life that we were given. Prevention is truly one of the main goals that we look into. And I wanted to end a couple slides by talking about love. We touched upon the causes. We touched upon some external factors that can help induce the use. We talked about prevention as being the best method to use. But if we are going through it, if we are going through an addiction, and like we said, 6 million people in Canada might go through one in their lifetime, love is the key. In a video from transition program, Programa Transição number 299, they say that love is the pill that is not found in any pharmacy or with any drug dealer. Love is the pill that truly heals. And with the question 115 from the Spirit's book, when Kardec asks, have some spirits been created good or evil? And the answer is no, they were created simple and ignorant, and they will achieve pure and eternal happiness. This sentence here brings us the idea that if we are going through it, we can achieve pure and eternal happiness through love. We can. We have the power. We have the will. God wouldn't put us or wouldn't allow us to go through a situation that we are not capable of overcoming. And to fill that existential emptiness to all of us, be it actually going through an addiction, or starting to numb our conscience with drugs or with anything else. At any point that we feel that existential emptiness, there is one out there that truly loves us, that truly wants us to be better, truly wants us to find ourselves, to fill that emptiness with love. And God gave us that example of love that not only taught us how to love, but showed us how to love. So with arms wide open, He's always looking at us. And when we feel that emptiness inside, if we close our eyes and we look and we see this loving Spirit, our brother, our Master, our Guide, our Christ, our Jesus, with wide open arms. We can close our eyes and hear him say, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take upon my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So he will always have his arms open, inviting us to come to him. All of us who are weary and burdened, because going to him will make us find a more gentle and humble and light path. He will always have his arms open, inviting us to come to him. And it's always up to us to stand up and actually walk towards those arms and truly hug that loving energy that our Jesus is. So that's all I had to bring. So I think we can go into our 10 minutes of reflections, Luis. Is that?
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. That was beautiful. It's yeah, two highlights that hopefully I will be able to go maybe a half% a little bit in more details with the time we have, but yeah, the role of the family, right, and the impacts. It's so interesting how it's one of the institutions most affected, but the key pillar to prevent. It's yeah, and how important that is. And also when you talked about the obsession part, and that was something that I intuitively knew, but as I was reading, how the companies, right, that we acquire and we draw upon us, it can be a cause and also a consequence, right? A consequence of you, of all of us, if we decide to go to the drug route. It's our thought. Our thought, our minds is the mirror of our life. So we draw us that company that that needs at that time, still needs, right? There's of course thousands of explanations, and we won't be able to point it out all of those. So how that is a consequence, but also sometimes due to our historical past, that can be some of the cause, and how you enter that vicious cycle of cause, consequence, and the importance of our awareness, if we are in that cycle, to break it and um, and do the work and the efforts required to break it and go into a more virtual cycle.
Yes.
I'd like just to point it out something that really touched me about your explanation, Victor, about the masks and how real is that when we don't accept ourselves as apprentices of life, as because we don't know, most of us, we don't know that we are apprentices of life. We don't feel that we are God's children. And then we are trying to satisfy the society, the demands from friends and how we should be, the competition that mostly nowadays we have to face, and how our lives become with no meaning. So why do I need to struggle to be better if this is not satisfying me inner self? Like I don't feel that. I don't know why do I need to do that. There's no reason and for me, and I'm trying to be better, and I am in this stage of self-demanding, and then cause this emptiness. And then in this book of Existential Conflicts from Joanna, she brings up exactly what you said about sometimes to be better at work, to be more extroverted, to be able to socialize better, I need to use alcohol. I need to use drugs to relieve myself. And then I ended up in this situation of dependency, of abusing, right? So we need to be very aware and cautious about the beginning of the problem, how the little conflict that we are facing daily can become a big one. Then I'm not going to be able to get rid of so easily. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I forget the name, that program that series at YouTube that talks about just trying to find the name.
Transição planetária?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Transição, just transição, yeah.
Yeah. The one that talks about chemical dependence. It says that the dream of every user is to stay a user. But that's the tricky part, yeah. Is that, and I was reflecting about this a little bit earlier, is that when we choose to numb our conscience, is because we're not reflecting about what's causing it. We don't care about it. Not that we don't care about it, but we just want to be over with it. We don't want to deal with that feeling. We just want to numb it, right? So we're not practicing reflection. We're not talking about it. We're not trying to understand it. And so we're denying that exercise of self-awareness. And if I start using, I might eventually become an abuser and an addict. And because I am not practicing self-awareness, I likely won't be able to detect when I've switched from being a user to now being addicted to it. So even though a lot of people might say I won't get addicted, that's likely because that exercise of self-awareness is not there. So we won't be able to tell whether or not we're already an addict or not. And we'll only realize it when it's there.
And if you couple that, I thought it was so simple and so touching, touching as well, but when the way I think Rosano described, right, it's fabricated, it's artificially, right, instead of something that we conquered. It's like you're putting a Band-Aid and a patch, but it was very well versed the way it was compared, because it is the way that I see is the drug is a solution for a problem, but a solution that is fabricated, it's temporary, it's artificially, and has a lot of, if we use I think the nomenclature of drugs, all the contraindications or the effects and the consequences, right, is not something that is for our mortal spirit, right? It's not something that we really conquer. Is just such a perfect word to describe what is not, and what we are recommended to pursue is to conquer our challenges or whatever we need to conquer with.
Exactly. Thank you. How's our time check?
Right on time.
Oh,
awesome. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, let me just put my slides here. Oops. Okay, now that Victor talked about the causes and the reasons and the drivers for the temptation or for addiction, and I think it's safe to say that today we are talking about all drugs, right? Even though we don't have all the necessary time to go through the depth of, for example, alcohol, tobacco, the legal drugs, illegal drugs, but we're trying to, and all the consequences and those causes, they can vary, but at the core, there's a lot of commonalities. But at the same time, when we talk about consequences, I always like to bring in all the cherishing lives from suicide, abortion, now drug addiction. Here we are just trying to give some highlights of the most common pieces or common consequences that someone might endure. However, there's so many factors that can diminish or increase. So I just like to do a preamble just to say some of the consequences that we'll see. It's not a recipe. Oh, using X will cause Y. It's not like that. But I think the importance is just to reflect and see if we decide to take that route, so we are aware. If we're talking about prevention, so we are aware what will be the consequences that who decided to take the drug route will face. So hopefully, I would like to cover those three questions. What are the consequences? That's the most obvious one. What are the consequences of drug addiction? Do the consequences go beyond the physical body? And what are the impacts of drug addiction, not addiction, addiction to the immortal spirit? So I would like just to, I like to think from a systemic view, and it's very impressive to reflect on the consequences of drug in this system that involves all of us, involves the individual from a physical, moral, and mental aspect. The consequences in the family, as we know, the family is this laboratory for our experience, for us to grow and for us to practice the virtues and overcome the challenges that we are invited to overcome when incarnated. Also, on society, and I can even go beyond a little bit on the economic side of drugs, and how does that impact all of us in this call and all of us as a society. And as important as to the other ones, the spiritual consequences. And even though I have the bullet points here, the individual, the family, social, and spiritual, the consequences, they're all in a web of interconnection. Here we are trying to give from let's put quote unquote an educational point of view, so we in a linear shape, but it's all interconnected. If we talk about individual, of course, the spiritual piece is already embedded in us as an immortal spirit. So it's all in that connection. So first, I would like to bring, as Victor mentioned about the book Existential Conflict from Joanna de Angelis, and I would like to bring a little bit about the consequences, the physical, moral, and mental ones. And even though this, which is chapter 14, that I would like to show us, she focused on the alcohol addiction. But as I read that, there's so many other commonalities for other drugs that you can face, that we can face the same consequences, and also alcohol. And for those who would like to know a little bit more about alcohol, I invite everyone to go to our FSS YouTube site, where you can find a more extensive explanation about how alcohol is such a door, a gateway for us as a humanity to embark in even more serious drugs. But I'd like to bring what Joanna describes in terms of the physical, mental, and moral consequences for the individual when in the alcohol addiction. And she describes the impairment of the individual when using the drug. Doesn't last very long, but it can go through three stages. It goes to a stage of excitement, a stage of depression, and a stage of coma. And Joanna describes that the excitement, and now that Victor explained, doesn't that makes it's kind of how they're all interconnected. When you have Victor explain the existential emptiness, that is the part of the excitement that the individual is trying to overcome, right? So the excitement is that euphoria that frees the patient from their emotional conflicts repress during sobriety. It doesn't take that long. It's kind of between 1.5 and 2 hours. Again, drawing to that point of fabricated, artificial, is just for a moment and a point in time. And as some of us might know, as we just get 1.5 and 2 hours, but we get results to 1.5 and 2 hours, and then we seek more. We seek something that maybe can last a little bit more, and something that can be even heavier. And that where, when also Victor made that point, just you don't become the user, right? We become the addicted. So Joanna then describes the stage of depression. The patient moves unsteadily, oscillates between sadness and happiness, sweats profusely, gets nauseous, and throw up. And we will see a little bit later the drug goes into our blood. The drug goes into our neurons, and there's a chemical, an intense chemical reaction, and the system is out of balance. And because the system is out of balance, our body starts to react with these consequences, or that Joanna describes, on throwing up in terms of physical, get nauseous, or in our mentally, that sadness and happiness, we kind of oscillate on that. And then comes the numbness, a kind of this sleepiness. It's what she calls the alcoholic coma. And at this stage, there's a cardiac collapse that can lead to disincarnation. You see how we can go from that extreme. And here in the disincarnation, we can draw a relation to suicide, right? And the suicide becomes another challenge for the immortal spirit to overcome during the period that immortal spirit is discarnated, and the challenge when that immortal spirit will be required to incarnate and go through the trials and expiations, so that spirit can learn, and that spirit can avoid this challenge or this mistake again. So it slowly progressed to intellectual and memory problems, emotional numbness, and behavioral problems. And as you can, we can see the individual who uses, it starts that the mood swings, right? It's hard to concentrate. It's hard to perform all the duties that we are required from our work perspective and from our entire life perspective. The individual becomes impaired. And we'll see a little bit of what does that impairment mean for that individual and for our society. Here, a little bit of more details about the patient looks pale, tired, and then she brings a little bit of more of the body organs, how in this case, alcohol can impact our liver, how the use of drugs, we are less immune to catch infections and get even pneumonia easily. And I remember when we did that talk last year, if we compare now with this pandemic that we are facing, how this virus is so impactful and harsh into our lungs. And now, if we have our whole body, which is our vase, right? Which is our vehicle for us to learn and for us to evolve in this instance. Now we are damaging, and we are reducing our chances to make sure that we are able to complete this journey that we are invited to complete on Earth. And she continues that when delirium tremens starts, it is extremely hard for the patient to recover sanity because of serious problems in the central nervous system and problems in the liver, kidneys, pancreas, stomach, intestine, heart, due in this case to excessive alcohol consumption. It's our whole body poisoned with the drug. And sometimes the patient ends up with, there's alcoholic dementia. At this stage, they're close to death because their organic functions have been depleted and their bodies can't keep working. So there's a massive implication that we do to our entire body, to the entire system that is our body. And as we will see, if our body is connected to our perispirit and our spirit, the damage carries on to all those levels that we are comprised of. Then I know the role of the family is in itself. It is a topic to be talked about. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of promotion here. Anna did an amazing talk, I think 2 years ago, and you can find the information about the role of the family and how the family can support, can prevent. As I mentioned, when Victor is talking about the role, the family is severely impacted. And one of the impacts that I would like to highlight is the violence. With the members of the family, right, within the individual that is facing that addiction. However, the family is the pillar. The family is the pillar to prevent. And in one of the articles that I read, is the family and the parents mainly are the preventive agents. They are the ones that have this great opportunity, and maybe even to share our motto and guide, which is Jesus, right? To influence and taught the kids the importance to understand Jesus as our motto and guide, to practice the virtues, and how Jesus is always with the arms open to welcoming us, and the importance of the family to share love. Because as Victor mentioned, one of the cause, there is a little bit of the drivers that can leverage the search for drugs, is when when the kids or our kids feel that they don't deserve love, or they didn't receive the love that they were expecting. So hugging and being, of course, that we're all from South America, so hug, it comes with our with our package. But how important it is to share and to show to the kids how loved they are, not only by parents, but how loved they are by Jesus and by God, and how we are all the sons of God. And based on Sonia, thank you for sharing that that show Transição. I thought this graphic was really to the point and gave me at least the visual to see how the role of the family is so important. And here we can see the on the Y axis the influence degree of the parents and the friends, and on the X axis we have the age. And we know that when we have that point, that inflection point, when the kids are 10, the degree of influence from the parents is started to decline, and then we have the friends becoming more influential in their lives. And between that 10 and 20 years, I forgot to put here, there is the perceived notion of danger, it's equal to 0. So how important is for the parents to be aware on that age to bring to be friends with their kids, and to bring that awareness, and to raise awareness about the consequences, to talk about what might have been causing some challenges that the kids might be facing, so to avoid and increase their influence. And I would say increase the influence of Jesus in their lives as our model and guide, to avoid taking that route. I really appreciate that graphic, because it gives a visual and also a little bit of a timeline. Of course, it's not always like that, but how important is that inflection point for all of us to be aware. And also, I'd like to bring a little bit of the social consequences, right? From in this, the pictures that we are seeing, they're all, it's all easy to not easy, but it's more tangible, right? The violence with kids in the family, fights when we are under the drug, alcohol or any drug, traffic accidents. And here I brought last year this the sentence that the connection with alcohol enslaves the mind and poisons the body. And how I would like to go one step further from this is the drug, how it's an impediment to the evolution of the world, right? We are in this planet of trial and expiation, but we know, according to Spiritism, that we are destined to become a better world. And to become a better world, it's all starting within ourselves, is the individual doing our inner work, and how the all of the drugs can cause this individual impact, and also the bigger impact in the world to become a better place. Oh, I have only 6 minutes. Okay, so the spiritual consequences. I really found so interesting where I found a text about merging science and the spiritual reality. So we know that the medical science revealed that the drug, when entering the addicts or the individual physical organism, it affects circulatory system, blood, respiratory system, brains, cells, and and especially our neurons. So we take medicine and science and go to, for example, Missionário da Luz, when André Luiz explains that the perispiritual body gives shape to the social elements of our body. And it's strongly linked and rooted in the blood. The blood is a basic element of balance in the perispiritual body. Then we can go a little bit further into a book, Evolution in Two Words, Evolução em Dois Mundos, where the same André Luiz also reveals that the neurons have an intimate relationship to the perispirit. Now we put those two together. So we compare those two pieces of work, medical science and the works from André Luiz. We can conclude that the aggression of drugs to the blood and our neuron cells will also reflect in the correlated regions of our perispiritual body and can cause lesions and deformations that in sometimes can even reach to compromise the very appearance of our perispirit. So again, it's science with spiritism saying how we are all linked and interconnected and what is the consequences when we decide to intake those drugs. And I would also like to bring what the Spirits book talked about in terms of in question 459, where I didn't bring the question, but I just bring the core message that we're constantly under a spiritual influence. So as we mentioned, if we're constantly under influence, and what types of influence in this market of ideas, as Emmanuel likes to mention to us, what influence we are drawing upon us when under a drug substance. But if we are in that situation, is it possible? It is. It is possible. And what is the possibility? It's our strong will. Our will to overcome, and our will to take that step back and to focus in ourselves to do the transformation. And are we alone? No, and everybody knows that I love from this question 490 and to 400, almost 500, the divine mercy has given us everyone on earth, from birth to death. We have our protector spirit, and the importance to call to that protector spirit when facing those challenges. Also, as Victor mentioned, and we talked about, when there's a lot of material from, especially from André Luiz, about the vampirization, right? That can be a cause and also can be a consequence when we decided to go into that route of drug. There is this, we're getting closer to the energies from those that are still needing, that maybe were in a situation of addiction and still feel the need of still experiencing through the incarnated body of any of the drugs. And there's a lot of cases and a lot of material, especially as I mentioned from André Luiz, that can be enlightened to know how this vampirization can occur, and also that vicious cycle. It might be a case of a cause of an obsession, but also be a consequences. And this can be to any addiction, not only drug, but sex or anything. It's our mental and our thoughts and what our thoughts are drawing to ourselves. And just to elaborate a little bit more, question 645, when a person is surrounded by vice, doesn't the impulse to commit vile acts become almost irresistible? And just to reiterate that question that I brought before, the impulse is strong, but not irresistible, because you can sometimes find great virtues within yourself despite being surrounded by vice. Spirits who remain virtuous in the midst of evil temptations have acquired enough strength to resist temptations and fulfill the mission of exercising a beneficial influence on those around them. And last but not least, are individuals' own efforts enough? Is it enough to vanquish his or her bad tendencies? Yes. And a very small effort is often all that is needed. It is the will that is missing. It is quite astounding how few of us make any serious effort. So again, it is a challenge, but an invitation for us to take a step back and go into that inner journey and finding that strength and using the resources, even it's family, a friend, a spiritual center, a book, a lecture, a YouTube video, many resources that God has given this planet, so we can find that strength to take a different route and heal from this challenge. That's it. Thank you. On 1 minute late, sorry.
Thank you, Luis. Great reflections. Something that it's very important again is the family role. Has a huge impact since the beginning, since when they are very small. We have this very important conversations with them and help them feeling that we are their truth friends. So they grow up with that confidence in themselves, in their parents, in their family, so they don't need to seek for family outside, right? And it's a very important role today. And in this video, like in this program about transition, they also mention that it's important our role as human beings and our fraternal role to help not only the people in our family, but our neighbors, our nephew, anybody that is passing through that situation. Sometimes the friends of our kids, that they are facing that challenge. So we are invited to help everyone in that situation. That's what we are doing here right now, right? Thank you very much.
Yeah, that I think that those are the roles, right? Especially of this of events like this to raise that awareness. And I know that the consequences sometimes it feels a little bit daunting, and it feels like it's a little bit hard, because yes, the consequences are not good at all, right?
Yes.
And it's important to, as we mentioned, right, prevention and understanding the root cause. It's imperative. It's the way to go. And also in that raise of awareness, to show what is the after, right? What is the effect? What are the consequences when doing that? Yeah. And the role of the family is such a and I would go once just to add is how important it is for the family to show and to educate kids about Jesus, right?
Yes.
About to become them, to let them understand how Jesus is our model and guide, and how important it is to law of adoration, right? To practice his laws, right? Because as we know, all those consequences, all we are talking here is just because we are going out of the path, right? We're falling a little bit out of the path of the divine laws, and it's important for the kids to understand how the divine laws are such a blessing, for us to pursue our happiness.
For sure, yeah. Providing us the right way, the shorter one
Right way,
to yeah, to find happiness and meaning to our lives. Very nice, thank you.
Yeah, with regards to the family, Louise, I really like the way you put it. Atu brings it on a couple of his talks too, about the family and how the family is raising the kids. So once they go outside, so once they leave, are they going to be influenced or are they going to be an influencer? And how important it is to have the education so they understand, like, why should I not use drugs? Because this, and this. So when they're faced with it, they can make an educated decision as opposed to being influenced. Because if they don't know that it's bad, or if they don't know why, right? If they just know it's bad because my dad told me so, they can't think on their feet. So it's easier to be influenced, right? So
yeah. And I
really
think
important.
one point I forgot to mention, I was watching, I think it was one of the programs from FAB, and they were talking about, yes, the consequences of when you discarnate, right? Especially if you discarnate due to a drug abuse, addiction, mean car accident or suicide, and yes, as we can see from the books from André Luiz, there is a challenging point, right? That spirit will need to overcome due to the mental state that the spirit is. But nonetheless, the divine mercy, it's not only for us incarnated, the divine mercy is for us as an immortal spirit. And if I couple that with the point of the will, when that spirit is ready and is prepared to start the healing process, that spirit, he or she or whatever, will have all the necessary help from the divine mercy to start that healing process. Will have all the help. We have all the help to start the process. So it's very consoling and comforting that all of us, as you mentioned, all of us are sons of God, and when we are ready to take that step, we will have the assistance required, incarnated or discarnated. All right, I think we can go to you, Sonia.
All right. Okay. Perfect. All right, so my part, it's about how can Spiritism be a source of relief and support recovery from substance abuse. So now that we have talked about the causes and the consequences, we are going to see how can Spiritism help? How someone that is trying to recover from this challenge situation, how the Spiritism be able to to provide relief and support to this journey, because it's another journey that we are invited, that we that are passing through this situation are invited to start. So we are gonna start talking, like the points that I'm hoping to cover today is Jesus' invitations to love, the spirit of truth, invitations, the role of Spiritism as a source for a life full of meaning, and the role of the immortal spirit in his journey to recover from substance abuse. All right, so let's start with Jesus' invitations to love. Jesus has invited us so many times and still invite us. but he has provided us many invitations. He had provided us many invitations through his entire life with us. And one of them has been brought to us today by Victor, when Jesus invites us to come to him. Come to me, all you that are wearied and burnt, and I'll give you rest. Another very important one that he invited us is saying that I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And that's the point, that sometimes we are searching for this real life, but we are searching in a wrong road. So that's the invitations that we are invited to pay attention. And this time, try to accept these lovely invitations. But today, I would like to bring another special invitation that Jesus sent to us, or gave to us when he was with us. Actually, he gave to the Samaritan woman. However, we are all invited to accept the same invitation that he provided to the Samaritan woman in front of the Jacob's well. So in that occasion, this therapeutic meeting with Jesus and the Samaritan woman, Jesus was waiting as a master to the apprentice to come and to learn from him. And when the Samaritan woman arrived to the point meeting, to the spot, Jesus asked her, like invited her and invited us to give him a drink. So he asked her a drink, and she said, she at the first beginning, she didn't accept, as we normally do, and we are passing through situations that we are trying to use masks, as Victor said. We don't want to accept. We don't want to follow the right road. So we deny. But then she asked him which kind of water, like how he would give her water if he didn't have anything to draw the water with. And then Jesus says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is asking you, who is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you the living water. So this living water here that only Jesus it's able to give to us, this is the living water, means the love that Jesus represents, the love that he has taught us during all his life. And he continues his invitation by saying, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirsty. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, which means that who drinks the water that Jesus gave, which is love, will never feel the need to search for this love in an outside source. Because we will become the source itself. We will become the spring of water, because we are going to create this living water, this source in ourselves, in our inner lives. And that's the purpose of our lives, is to learn love, starting with learning love ourselves. So that's the invitation. This invitation of Jesus, it's very, very important and has a greater meaning, because that means that we are invited to accept his invitation to drink this living water, this source of love, of purpose in life, of meaning in life. and never searching for this source outside us, as the Samaritan woman was doing. She was looking for something that was outside her. She was trying to draw water from a well outside of her, and the well where she could draw water from, draw this living water, was from herself, as a mortal spirit, as a sense of God, which is light and love, and we are also light and love as well. So this is, we can understand from this invitation, we can also remember of the question 115 from the Spirit's book that says that we are created simple and unaware, but we have a mission to enlighten ourselves. And Jesus, after 2,000 years, he's still inviting us. And 170 years, more or less ago, he came as the Spirit of Truth to reinforce this invitation. And he invited us through the doctrine of the spirits as the Spirit of Truth, saying, Spiritists, love one another, that is the first precept, and educate yourselves is the second. Within Christianity, you find all the truths. So what this another important invitation means to us means that, first of all, we are invited to love. As the text of harmonization that Luis brought to us today, without love, we cannot reach or achieve anything. First of all, is the love that we are invited to develop in ourselves. And second, it's very important, is educate ourselves. Educate to learn about love. And where we can learn about love, we can learn from the examples that Jesus brought to us with his gospel. So in that way, we can educate ourselves, and we can educate everybody that is around us, our family, our friends, providing this example of love, who is Jesus. So first of all, we are invited to love and then educate ourselves. But what does it mean, educate ourselves? Is to learn the divine laws, which we can find in the gospel, which is a sum up of all the divine laws, which Jesus not only taught us, but he also exemplified all those laws, loving everybody that was seeking for his help and his mercy. And we are invited to follow his example. So as according to Honorio, in the book, The Spirit Center and the Promotion of the Immortal Spirit, this is the main objective of the Spiritist Center, is to educate the immortal spirits. So we are immortal spirits. The proof of immortality is very clear explained in all the Kardec's books. We can read that even in the Bible, many examples, Jesus clarified this point to us. But we are invited to have the eyes to see and the ears to listen to. And when we are in this when we are willing to learn, the lesson will be there for us. And the Spirit Center plays a very important role in that. How the Spirit Center can help any person in any kind of challenging situation. We are not talking here about only alcohol abuse or drugs abuse, but every type of challenges that we are facing in our lives. But specifically for this huge challenge, that it's a long way that the immortal spirit goes through, and then needs to take this journey back to the Father's house, like in the parable of the two sons. So when we get there, how the Spirit Center, which we can have this analogy saying that maybe the Spirit Center works as the Father's house. So as according to the Federation of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, FEB, what's the role or what's the main duties of the spiritual assistants? So we are going to talk about a set of activities that aims to attend people who are searching for the Spiritist Center in order to obtain enlightenment, orientation, help, and spiritual and moral assistance. So there, in the Spiritist Center, the person that is seeking for support and relief should obtain enlightenment, which is console, orientation, which is clarification, and help, which is assistance for their spiritual and moral struggles in life. So the Spirit Center, this is the main objective of the Spirit Center, not only promote like moral comfort, but also clarification and assistance, or educate the immortal spirit. So with that in mind, let's see what's the activities that can provide two types of relief, the relief and the clarifications. Sorry about my my slide here. So let me finish it up. Okay, so we have fraternal, in our fraternal activities, we have two types of support. One is the immediate relief, and the other is the clarifications for the immortal spirit, to educate the immortal spirit. So in the invitation from Jesus, come to me all that are weary and burdened, and I'll give you the rest. We can have the relief and the rest. So the relief is something that comes and helps to alleviate immediately. And the clarifications help the person to get the strength enough to keep going, to keep making efforts. So for the relief, we have the fraternal reception, which is the part where we are welcoming everyone that is looking for us. So we provide this warm welcome to make the person feel comfort, feel welcome to our house, as Jesus would do. Actually, we are in this activity, we are representing Jesus himself. So how can we model Jesus in this point? So providing welcoming to everyone that is searching for us, providing this fraternal assistance, which means providing a fraternal dialogue with somebody that is in need to talk, is in need to be listened to. We have the assistance through the PASS. What is the PASS? The PASS consists in transfusion of energies that allows a person to strengthen of their energies, so they can keep working towards their progress. The irradiation prayer, which is transmitting spiritual fluids or vibrations through the distance to anyone that is in a challenging situation that needs that energy. So these are the four activities that we can promote relief. To clarify, to help a person to understand or to educate the spirit, the immortal spirit, we have the lectures. We have the meetings of the gospel in the light of spiritism that happens every Monday. We have the gospel at home, where we can help a person to implement this blessed activity or this blessed task that could be like it's like an extension of the Spirit Center to our homes, where the family get together and study the gospel. So this activity, this meeting helps everyone in that family to promote a better spiritual balance and to have environment, a better environment, like with good vibrations and good energies. And we have the mediumistic meetings, which is not open to the public. It's a kind of activity that it's actually it's more addressed to the discarnates, not only to incarnates. The incarnates, it's involved when we have cases of obsessions, like Victor and Luis brought to us. So in these cases, when we have an incarnate that is striving to recover from the addictions, and because of the influences from the spiritual that are the individuals that are discarnated but still need that sensation, they play a very important role to, they are a huge barrier actually to that person to recover, because they were keeping asking or requesting, demanding from that person to keep using that substance, because they want to use the substance as well. When an incarnate uses, the discarnate also uses, because as Luis brought in that slide, it's very clear that the discarnate using along with the incarnate the substance, mainly the alcohol. So in that sessions, most the discarnates, they are provided with clarifications and reliefs as well, and the help from the spiritual world, the benefactors that are involved with these meetings. I don't know how am I with time?
You have 8 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So, but with all this help, is it still possible to overcome this huge challenge? So as we can see in the book from Joanna de Angelis, Existential Conflicts, she says that Jesus, the unusual psychotherapist, once affirmed, all things are possible to those ones who believe. So if I believe, if I have my faith that helps me to strengthen my will, I will believe in myself, in God, and all the spirits, the benevolent spirits, and mainly our guardian angels will be there to help us. But that is the part, this is the role of the immortal spirit. So as a spiritist center, we provide all this help, but it's up to the individual to keep searching, to use his own will to find the recovery that they need. So, and this is the part of the immortal spirit. And Joanna de Angelis also brings to us these important advices from this chapter about the drug use, the drug abuse. She says, in the treatment to recover from the drug abuse, as a key factor, the patient's interest in his own recovery becomes indispensable, because only with his well-directed will he be able to overcome the difficult moments that arise, trusting in the future results. So here we can see that a very important key point, well-directed will. So our will, which is the attribute of the spirit, plays a very important part, because without willing, we are not able to achieve anything in life. So the will, when we want something, when we have a sincere will, everything becomes possible. So for this case in specific, where we have our bodies, our minds, and our soul all interweaved, like connected with this need, because when we, as Luis brought, when we use those substances, when we start abusing of these substances, we damage our body, our physical body, that reaches our spiritual body, and we attract to us companions that will make our journey back more difficult. So we have this, like Joanna D'Angelis brings, the problem becomes bigger when we start in this, when we start getting deeper and deeper with this need, with this search for meaning in life that we're trying to get from material, from something that is outside, something that is fabricated, as Victor brought to us. So we need a very well-directed will. We need a powerful will, but it's possible when we believe that we are able to help ourselves. And the science has been proving this. There is a group, a medicine group from Brazil called the Center of Research in Spirituality and Health, from Juiz de Fora. And this researcher called Professor Alexander Moreira Almeida, he brings that the science has been proving that spirituality or religiosity plays an important role to help us to enhance the level of happiness, meaning of life, to lesser levels of depression cases, suicide, and drug abuse. So the science is now, along with the spirituality, helping us to understand this issue and helping us to understand how important is to be connected with a source that is higher, that is powerful than us, which is God, which is Jesus, which is faith. So he brings some important points or some important mechanisms that can help us to overcome this challenge. So if we have a faith, if we have a religious group that we are connected with, we can get support from this community. So we are going to have this support that I have described with the fraternal reception, fraternal dialogues, the passes, the gospel at home. All those are supports from a religious group. We have strong relationships. When we are going to a church or to a spiritist center, we make good friends. We make relationships that are deeper, that are stronger than social ones. We feel safe to ask help and to obtain help, and we find stronger sense of purpose in our lives. And how it's like the meeting with Jesus in Samaritan. We understand the purpose of life because we understand that we are here to learn love, to learn how to love ourselves and our neighbors. We learn how to pray because normally in those places, in churches or in spiritual center, in religious group, we learn how to pray. And that prayer, we can connect with our Creator through meditation, through prayer, through mindfulness. We can learn to trying to help our mind to be quiet and silence and to connect it with our sense, which is spiritual, which is spirit, which is love, which is light, as God. And with this connection with God, with Jesus, we are able to overcome all challenges, as Jesus says. We are able to do everything. All things will be possible. So that's my message that helps. This is just an overview of the help that we can provide because of the time that we have, but it's try to summarize in a very short way how we can get help from our faith, or how the Spiritist Center can help us to overcome this challenge that is very, very big.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's such an important piece of our religion. And then it's kind of, we circle back to the first point that Victor mentioned about the existential emptiness, right?
Yeah.
And we go into the root cause of this issue. But also based on what we watch with that program TV, that show TV Transição, it's also important that it is required, the religious plays such an important role, prevention at any point of the cycle, but also it is required professional help, right? In a lot of those cases, there is a requirement to have a treatment, right? The will, as we saw, a strong will is what will drive, but it is important for those to seek that professional help, like psychologists and all the ones that are required to pair together all the efforts and all the resources required to help those struggling with this issue.
For sure, I totally forgot to mention that, but I had my back of my mind here, I forgot. But it's important to have, to get help from psychologists and psychiatrists, the medicine, right? It's important to put all those together, those two efforts together, medicine and spirituality, both together to help us to overcome this big challenge. It's hard to be alone and to go to this journey alone.
Just to complement that, I find that because we are not necessarily professionals, even in the city centers or any religious institutions, we are not diagnosing anyone with anything. So we are helping provide that spiritual guidance and help, right? And for me, that also brings this view that the humans are a whole, body, mind, and spirit. So I think that makes completely sense that yes, there is the help for the material part, not our bodies and whatever needed, but there is also help for the spirit. And it actually changes a lot. Well, we should or could help change this view that we are just here or we're just spirits. Some people just think, oh, I'm in mortal streets, I'm not going to deal with my body. I'm just going to think about my future when I go back to the spiritual life. But no, we have a body here and we are to take care of it too. So I just want to say that because I think it really, we are working together. We're not trying to separate, like the material life to the spiritual life. We are, the mortal spirit is one.
Thank you for bringing that. And actually, the religions normally, in mainly spiritism, help us to take care of our bodies, to value this temple of God, and through avoiding only on all the substances that can poison our bodies. So this is it's a good point from the religious spirituality, religiosity. It gives us the sense of we should protect ourselves, our body, our minds, and our souls. So and being like grateful for being here and trying to always search for things that are important for us in these three ways, for the three dimensions that we belong to, because there's not only the physical body but the soul as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Sonia. When you brought that passage from Monario that talked about how the main goal of the Spiritist Center is to educate, and that follows through with what the Spirit of Truth told us to first love one another and then educate yourself. So the Spiritist Center does provide that second piece to educate ourselves. And I was thinking that, well, the Spiritist Center is also a great place that we can find people to love each other, right? We can feel the love in the Spiritist Center as well. So that second home provides, it can provide both advice from the Spiritist truth, right? To love one another and to educate ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, and I came across this sentence from Emmanuel that I thought it was so beautiful when he said, "Clarifying or education or knowledge is a form of love." So simple, right?
Yeah.
And so to the point and so powerful.
And so aligned with the
Yeah.
spirits of truth.
Yeah.
And he says, love one another and educate yourselves.
Yeah. All right. I think now we go. I think I'm going to just close the stream, and then we go to our irradiation. Is that right?
Do you want to do a final prayer before?
Yeah.
Or?
Yes. That's
okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna.
No problem.
I was confused. Like, what do I do first?
Okay. So can you hear me well? Yeah, right. So we can close our eyes to our final prayer. Dear Lord, our Father, we are grateful for this day and for the opportunity of sharing the knowledge and learnings we all had with this workshop. We hope that everyone, incarnate and discarnate, were touched by the information shared and reflect upon the learning so we can all improve while immortal spirits. May these reflections inspire us to deepen our understanding and to help us, dear God, to be more compassionate and charitable to anyone, to everyone, especially to the ones that need the most. Dear Father, may the brothers and sisters that are suffering with drug addiction receive our love and feel comforted and stronger to free themselves from these vices, as well as everyone going through any difficult times and trials. Dear brother Jesus, please bless our efforts to better ourselves and to help one another. May we all have a blessed Sunday. So be it.
So
Very
be
good.
it.
Be it.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you, Anna.
you.
Thank you.